yeah, I decided I want to get healthier. I really didn't know that it will have such an effect on me.
Gerda, how did you find carnivore?
Dave, my husband used to be on keto, so all of us followed the keto lifestyle, and he actually lost a lot of weight. But he always told me about carnivore, but I thought it's very extreme. I didn't. I also thought it's going to be very, very expensive. You know, you hear that you must eat meat, and then you think steak and whatever. But so I was just, I didn't want to go for it. But then stuff happened in my life. We are carnivore. My son, my husband, and myself, all of us in the house is carnivore now. So last year we started, but the reason we started is that I have a lung condition. They call it ILD, interstitial lung disease. And I went 2 years ago. I went to a professor in Cape Town, and he told me that I might need a lung transplant. But he also said that if I were to qualify, okay, he says I needed a lung transplant. He said that, but I still had to go for the tests to see if I really qualify for the transplant. But he didn't even want to do the tests because I wasn't living in Cape Town. So because I've been searching for years and years what the problem with my lungs are, because I had a lot of breathing problems. I had infections. I was ventilated. Okay, and I had COVID, but who didn't? But COVID came later. And I was also on a lot of cortisone, so I gained weight. It wasn't like I was on cortisone for a month or whatever. It was going on for like 30 years. I'm 54 now. So it was going on since I was in my 20s. I was using cortisone on and off. So I used to be very skinny, and then I started using, and I picked up weight very quickly. Anyway, so I went to the professor, and he told me I've got the ILD. It's the first person who really, they always said I had asthma, but, and I also had TB twice in my life, tuberculosis. It's a disease that you can get very easily in South Africa, especially I think in Cape Town. It's very, so I had it twice. So that was also a sign that my lungs are not, I get infections and stuff very easily in my lungs. So he gave me the diagnosis of ILD, interstitial lung disease. But I also have a genetic condition that they call alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency. It's when your antitrypsin is too low in your body, and then your lungs are not protected against free radicals. So it can be anything from infection, pollution, any smells, smoke, cigarette smoke, anything. But you don't even have to have all those factors. If you have that condition, if you have the genetic tendency, then your lungs are not in a good position. But I don't have um, the worst one. I have one that most people don't even get lung problems with the one that I have, but they're not sure if it's a component of my lung disease. Anyway, so all through the years they were treating me. I was in hospital like 3 4 times every 3 months. About I was in hospital. The doctor even told me that she'll see me every 3 months. So what happened? I had a lot of phlegm in my lungs, and that is also inflammation. So I would wake up in the morning, and I already had a lot of phlegm, and it affected my breathing. So it was very difficult. It was so bad that since had COVID, I was using oxygen 24 hours a day. So if I took the oxygen off, it was like 2 minutes, then my saturation or my oxygen levels went very low. It's supposed to be 90, or really for a normal person, 95 and up. And it went down like 84, 83 very easily, like in 2 minutes' time. So I was walking around with the oxygen machine 24 hours. I have this little portable oxygen machine, and at night I'm using the big machine. Anyway, so to go back to the professor, so I actually love him so much. He's a very down to earth kind of person. Um, so he told me I can only come for the evaluation for lung transplant if I live in Cape Town. So I came back and I was so depressed. I'm telling you, you're going to hear something very weird today. Because I was so depressed, I shaved off all my hair. I was busy making changes in my life. I can't explain it. It was such an emotional. And then I started. I decided I'm going to go carnivore. I'm going to change my attitude towards illness because that's also very important. If your mind is not right, you can't do carnivore. You can't do anything if your mind is not right. So luckily I've got there again. Eh? Anyway, so it was quite a journey. So for me, if you are on oxygen the whole time, it's there's a lot of fear connected to it because the doctors tell you that if you take the oxygen off, your organs are gonna, you get organ damage, and it is true. It can affect your brain, it can affect your organs, your heart, because we need oxygen. I mean, and if you don't get enough through your lungs, then it does a lot of damage. So for me, it was a very scary process to start going without my oxygen. So I started with carnivore. So it was last year, 2024, about April, that I started like permanently. All of us then were permanently on carnivore. Not that we are, let's say 90% carnivore, because sometimes still, if there's like a celebration or so, we will eat something that we're not supposed to eat. But we don't actually, if I do that, then I can see there's a difference in my lungs, in my, and even body aches like my hips and so on. I get pains. So I don't have arthritis or anything, but I do have painful joints if I eat the wrong food. So so then I went on. I started taking the oxygen off for like 10 minutes, half an hour. And with time, I realized, because I have a little saturation machine, it's a little thing, that thing that you put on your finger. All of us said that when COVID was on, we knew what that was. So I measured my oxygen. I realized that if I take it off and my oxygen do go low, then I must just sit still and I'll breathe a little bit, and it goes up again. But when I was so bad, it wasn't like that. I couldn't restore the function. I could even faint if because of the lack of oxygen. So it completely changed my life to follow the carnivore way of eating, because the life that I had was a life full of fear. I we have a lot of problems in South Africa with power outages. So you can imagine, if the power goes out, I can't use my oxygen machines. Okay, my small one, it has a backup battery. It works with a battery, and I also have a backup battery. But the large machine that I'm supposed to use at night, then I must put that on an inverter. And if the inverter is finished, then if there's a long blackout, then I'm without oxygen. So if the power goes out, it's the biggest fear, I'm telling you.
That
Because
must
what
be
now?
terrifying.
Yeah, and you know, I've a few times my husband had to take me to the hospital just to go and sit there with my machine, because usually the hospitals at least have the backup power. But I can't. It is a fearful situation. You live in fear. Doctors tell you also the whole time that you are. When I was younger, they told me that I'm not going to see my children grow up. They told me that 55 is my deadline, and I'm nearly 55 now. I'm on the last few months of 54. So he said, I'm not going to make it until 55. And so I think and I hope, yeah, and also the other lifestyle changes that the way of living that I have now is that, so when I went out, I always had to have my portable oxygen machine with me. So, for instance, in a mall, I go in a mall, I have to, then it lasts for 4 hours. And if I'm there for more than 4 hours, and also if I put the machine higher up, because then I'm walking. So, usually I use it on 2. But if I'm walking, I had to put it in like 4, and then the battery also went out more quickly. So then we had to change the battery, and everybody's looking at you. What's going on with this person? Why is she walking around with pipes in her nose? At least they can ask me. I don't mind if they ask me, but they just look at you and make you feel, you're feeling uncomfortable. Anyway, but it didn't really matter because I knew that it was what was at that stage of my life. It was the best thing for me, because in the beginning I didn't even want to go out with the machines, and I decided my life can't stand still because of this. I'm still alive, I wake up every morning, and so now I don't have to think about oxygen so much anymore. I still use it at night. I can go out. I'm part of the community or the people in the mall. I'm not standing out. It's nice to be special, but you don't want to be special with wires and pipes in your nose. You understand what I mean?
Right, right. So
You,
so can I just clarify? So
yes.
when you went carnivore, did you have any expectation that things were going to improve like this, or you just decided, "I just wanna get a bit healthier"?
Yeah, I decided I want to get healthier. I really didn't know that it will have such an effect on me. I didn't, so yeah, I think I can't say that I'm in remission. I can still feel my lungs are not normal. When I wake up in the morning, I still have that little bit of a cough, and I do get out of breath a little bit. But I think I might be in remission. I might be, the disease is there, but it's not so active anymore. I think the inflammation went down in my lungs. I mean, inflammation is swelling, and if you have swelling in your lungs, I can't think that you can breathe properly. These are things that my doctor didn't tell me that. That's only what I think. So I don't have any proof yet. I'm going to my doctor the 2nd of July, and she's going to be very surprised to see that I don't have the oxygen on. She's going to be very nervous about that. But she's also going to do tests again. I mean, she'll measure my oxygen. I don't know if she'll do x-rays. I just wish that she can do a scan, but they don't always do scans, so that I can just have proper proof.
So you haven't seen your doctor since these improvements?
That's the thing. I told you that I went to hospital like every 3 months, and now I haven't been in hospital for about 2 years already. Can you believe it?
Well, and, so this has been more than a year now. Um, at what point along the way, so you started in April, at what point along the way did you realize that I don't need to use this as often anymore?
I think it took me about 2 to 3 months to wean myself. You're talking about the oxygen.
Yeah.
I think it took about 2 to 3 months to wean myself, and I was still taking my machine with me if I go out, just to be there, but very gradually. I couldn't do it, just take it off, because my body was also used to the extra oxygen. Yeah, so about, and then, so say for instance, April, May, June, July, then it was in winter. And I don't know why, but in winter, I wasn't usually very sick in winter time. I think it's because I was isolated more. So usually I used to get sick more like in springtime. So it's winter now with us, and spring starts about September. So I was expecting in September that I might go to hospital again. And you won't. Then I got COVID again for the fourth time. I got COVID. I went through COVID without going to hospital. It was like a bad cold, but that was all.
Right. Wow. So I mean, the function has improved massively then if it was so
Definitely.
bad.
Yeah.
So when you started, your husband and son started with you, was that they were doing it more as a support for you?
Yeah, it was for support for me, but also for health for them because my son has the same eye condition as myself, and he also has glaucoma. So he's 22 now, so he has glaucoma as well. And I also saw from the videos that I was watching, the Dr. Vitamin, what's his surname? Um,
Dr. Wiedemann?
the ophthalm, yeah, Vitamin, the ophthalmologist. She was talking about all these eye conditions that many more people get these eye conditions now than in the past because of eating habits. So we also wanted him to go on it for his glaucoma and overall all health, and my husband as well, to lose some more weight and just to be more healthy, but also in support of me, definitely. Yeah, no.
And,
Yeah.
so has anything improved with your eye condition or your son's eye condition?
Unfortunately, we were born with cataracts. So it's very unusual. So that can't really improve because they implanted new lenses for us and stuff. And it's a thing in the brain, the connection between the brain and the eyes. It's actually the eyes are now quite normal. I don't know if you can see sometimes my eyes are wiggling a little bit because it's because I can't focus properly. My
I
brain does
see.
the connection is not really there. So you can't do much about the eyes, but the glaucoma, I thought that wasn't genetic. It came with time. So, yeah, so at the moment, his eye pressures are very good, but he is still on eye drops. But he said actually want to try to use less eye drops, but you can't just, it's dangerous to do it just to leave the drops. You must do it under supervision, I feel, under supervision,
Right,
because
right.
if the pressure is there, it can damage your eyes like forever. You can go blind because he can see a little bit better than I can. I actually have three children. All of them have the same eye condition, but all of them see much better than I can. So,
I
but it's
see.
fine. We
Yeah.
are fine.
Uh, so talking about your diet day to day, what's your menu like?
Okay. Most of the time, I eat only once a day, and it's about 9, 10 o'clock in the mornings. If when I get hungry, I eat. But then the rest of the day, I only drink coffee, and I drink coffee with cream. So I eat a lot of eggs. I eat a lot of mince. I eat chicken and pork and cheese and yeah, anything carnivore I eat. I'm not such a big eater. I know that I struggle to eat enough. And that's why I've lost since last year. I've lost about 10 kilograms. But at the moment
Oh,
I'm
nice.
standing still. Yeah, at the moment I haven't been losing much weight. But I think it's because I might be under eating. I get full very easily and then I can't, especially with the eggs. If I sometimes I have to skip eggs for a few days because I can't do it anymore. So, but really, I
Mm.
wanted to go on this interview to try to inspire people who have chronic conditions. I'm not a doctor, but I feel many chronic conditions. If you don't have to live that way, if you just eat better. If you don't buy your bread anymore, and all the pastas and sugars and stuff that causes the inflammation. I mean, just try it at least. I mean, it might change your life.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so have you had you haven't seen your doctor, so has anyone kind of noticed you're eating this way outside your family?
Yeah, I have a few friends actually who are on the carnivore diet with me. And I don't feel ashamed. I tell everybody, but my doctor doesn't know yet. My GP knows, but the specialist doesn't know. But the GP is quite, she's not saying much because the thing is, I don't go to the doctor so much. So, but she knows that I'm doing this. And she has done blood tests for me, a little bit of, CRP to see the inflammation, and it is down. And yeah, she will do, if I asked her to do a test, she will do it. She will help me with that. But I haven't done much tests yet.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that's cool that you got friends around you as well that are giving it a try. So I guess the word's kind of spreading within South Africa as well about carnivore.
Definitely, we have a WhatsApp. I don't know if you have WhatsApp where you are. We have a WhatsApp group with a few people. They said they don't want to make it too big, the group, but I think I'm not sure how many people are on it, but really many. There's WhatsApp, what do you call it? Facebook groups as well, South African face groups.
Right. Oh,
On,
nice.
yeah.
So, is it expensive in South Africa as far as animal products, like buying your meat and eggs?
Um, the eggs can be expensive, but we buy our eggs from somebody who gets it from a farm. So it's really not so, it's really affordable. And it depends on the kind of meat that you buy. Steak is more expensive, but I can't eat it every day, but then I'll just keep it for like over the weekend when all of us are at home, then we'll eat some steak. Or I think we have a budget, but I can really say it's not so expensive. Expected it to be much more expensive. So I
Uh,
think we're actually saving because
yeah, I was
sugar
gonna
is
say, like,
expensive. Yeah,
yeah, overall,
bread.
usually people
Yeah,
save money because they're not buying snacks and stuff, right?
yeah, and you satiated. Is that the word? Eh? Yeah, you're not hungry, so you can eat much less. Um, and the bread that we have here in South Africa, all the sliced breads, all of them have soya in them. Soy, like the Americans say.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so it's like a filler. It's like to make it more um affordable. So, I mean, I used to eat bread every day. So every day I had soya. That's not good for you, really. So, I'm so happy. I'm so glad
Yeah.
that there's this way of eating, even though some people might think you're crazy and they don't want you, they're telling you that, please just eat some greens. And the one friend that's doing this with me, she's going to a like a clinic to help her a little bit with losing weight, and they're putting machines and stuff on her. And they wanted to give her a diet. She said, "No, no, no, I'm doing this, but only little bit of vegetables in the evening, please." So, like, really can't understand that you can't go without the vegetables.
Right. Yeah, it's just because people have basically been trained since they were toddlers that you must have vegetables
Yeah, I
and
must have a
you
colorful
can't
plate.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most young babies and young children, they don't like the veggies. Why don't we open our eyes and just see what they really like?
Exactly, like, I look back on trying to make my daughters eat, like, "Have some carrots, have this,"
Mm.
hiding the carrots under something else so they don't know that they're having it, and it's like, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah, and your special machine that you buy to make the purees for them, you feel so special because you're doing this for, for your baby, and it's not necessary. The animal products have all the vitamins and minerals, everything they need. Yeah. And
Yeah,
these baby milks, the formulas. Yeah. a lot of carbs and stuff inside of those formulas.
Yeah,
So,
and all the other garbage that gets put in there as well. It's quite scary
weird
that we're
oils
feeding
and
this to
stuff.
babies.
Yeah.
So what are your plans at this stage? You're going to see the specialist again in July,
Yeah, 2nd
and
of
then yeah, and what are you
June.
hoping from there? Do you think there's a point where you're gonna be able to get rid of the oxygen altogether, or
That's my hope. Actually, I'm also on a CPAP machine. I'm supposed to use a CPAP machine because I have sleep apnea as well. So I don't know if it's because of the lung problems or is it because whatever, I don't know. They couldn't really tell me why I have sleep apnea, but I haven't been using the apnea machine at all. But my husband says I don't snore, I don't make weird sounds anymore at night. So I can't say that I am rid of the apnea attacks. I can't say that. So what I want to do, and if she's open to it, because I don't know what I'm going to go into that day. I'm quite nervous about this. So I want to ask her if they can do a sleep study again on me, but without oxygen. And I don't know if she'll let me do that. And because it doesn't, if they do the sleep study with the oxygen, they won't be able to say if I really need the oxygen at night. That will be fantastic. I've been using oxygen during the night since I was 36 years old. So
wow, almost 20 years.
that's also the reason why I don't just want to leave it because I can't monitor myself at night. So I'm really unaware. I don't know what she's going to say because that's what I want to ask her. And if she, I would like to see if there are any changes on my scans because I can see the lung, all the, okay. I know the lung scarring. I'm not sure if that can improve. Um, but at least I would love to see if it does. Uh, don't know if
Yeah.
she'll be open to my request.
It's, this is the amazing thing, right? But is we kind of, we put all our faith in the pharmaceutical companies, the medications, the machinery, the medical machinery, and all this kind of thing. And we kind of forget that our body is actually inherently very good at healing.
No, it is capable of.
Mm.
Something I forgot to tell you is that for this ILD and bronchiectasis, they also say I have bronchiectasis. That was the reason I had all the phlegm. They give you antibiotics. It's a low dose antibiotics, but it's 3 times a week. You have to drink that permanently. So you can imagine what damage it does to your gut health. And I was also using, like I said, did I tell you that I was using the cortisone? Yeah, I was also using cortisone, but not the tablets permanently. I was using inhalations. And as the months, in the first place, I just dropped the antibiotics because they say I have Pseudomonas in my lungs. It's a very bad bacteria. It's actually like a hospital infection, but it can remain there. Can't remember what they call it anymore if it remains there. But anyway, so I had Pseudomonas, or they'll say I still have it. So I can't think that if you use antibiotics the whole time, that's the problem now with bad bacteria is that the antibiotics that they don't work anymore. So if they give it to you permanently, then you're going to be in trouble at the end if you really need something and you had that antibiotics the whole time.
Yeah, you come into contact with an antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and then that's it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I also had C. diff because there's a lot of stuff that happened to me. I was septic also 2 years ago because I had a port, and that Pseudomonas from my lungs went to the port and it made me septic. So that caused that. So then the doctor, when I was discharged from the hospital, she gave me I think it was 3 kinds of antibiotics. I had to use that like for a month. It was big dosages because that if you're septic, it is very dangerous. So I was using that, and then when I went to the prof that time, I had C. diff. C. diff is a kind of stomach thing that you get from antibiotics. That then you must use another antibiotic to get rid of that. That was also when I made the decision that how can I use these antibiotics the whole time, and then I get complications from that. Not later on, it's not even just your lungs because you get side effects from all the medications, and you have to use another medication to counteract that side effect. And how can you stay alive? I think most people, if they die early from a chronic disease, it's actually not even from that disease. I think it's more complications, but that's only my opinion. When I left, I didn't. I'm not drinking the antibiotics anymore. That's one thing that I'm not sure what she's going to say. Now I'm very nervous to tell her. Then I also dropped the inhalation. So you won't believe I'm on zero medication at this stage. No doctor told me to do that. And you know how they are about their medications. Um, they take
Wow.
out that prescription pad very easily to if you say your ankles are swollen because of the cortisone, then they'll give you water tablets to counteract that. Yeah, so
Yeah, they won't go, "Oh, well, stop taking the cortisone and see what happens." They'll go, "Well, we need to load more meds on top of that."
yeah. So I think the 30 years that I was on cortisones on and off, it did a lot of damage to my body, to my skin, my weight, my metabolism. If you use cortisone the whole time, you are more susceptible to infections. I was ventilated for my lungs a few times, and I mean that you know how traumatic that is. It's really terrible. So when you're on the ventilator, you are asleep. You're in an induced coma, so you don't know, but you have you have a lot of nightmares. You can sometimes hear people speak around you. Afterwards, you're in like another world. You're in a state you can't. You have trauma for a very long time. Still, if I think about it, if I have to think that they want to put me on a ventilator again, I don't think I'll say yes. I'll tell them no because it's very traumatic and the pain I got. What do you call it? Thrush in my throat. The thrush is very painful. So then I tried to show them my throat. My throat is sore. They tied me up because they were scared that I'm going to pull out the pipes. Because I did pull out the pipes once, and then when I just wanted to show them, it's very very painful. They tied me. They have this restraint. I'd say they tie you up. That sounds terrible, but it's like soft restraints, so that you can't touch your pipes and pull out your pipes. So you're very confused. You get nightmares. My children were quite young. I was dreaming about shooting any sound that's in the ward. You interpret that as something else. So I thought they were shooting around us. You get like a
Wow.
syndrome of a ICU syndrome. You can't even explain it. So I was
Mm.
dreaming stuff like they take me to a bus, some other bus. I won't explain the whole thing, but I was on a bus for so that they can do tests on me. I was dreaming that. And then I told my husband about the bus and I asked him why didn't he come and visit me. For me, it was so real. It was so real for months on end afterward. And he said, no, there wasn't a bus. No, I didn't believe him. So months went by after I've been on the ventilator. It was in 2010 already. What months went by. Then with time, I realized, no, it didn't really happen. So your memory, your short-term, long-term memory is affected. Yeah, and the dreams are very real. But I must say, I think I'm on a good path now. the advice I can give is start with carnivore. Even if you want to start with keto first, just go over to carnivore. But I think just go and just start doing carnivore, and then but don't leave your medication. Don't take away the medication. If you want to do it under doctor's supervision, you must do it that way, and otherwise you can, as you see your body improves, then you can start do that. I can't give that advice. I can't say take away your medication, but you never know how your life can change. I'm a different person. I'm not the same person as 2 years ago. I I really thought that I'm gonna die in my 50s. Everybody was telling me that. And don't let them tell you the whole time that you're gonna die. Don't I know that the doctors are also scared, and I was very sick. And I know that it's reality that you can die when you get so sick. But if you can change your diet, start there. Because what you put in your mouth, that's the way your body's going to be. I think Dr. Berry always says that it's going to that's what your body's going to be made of. So try it. Try it for 30 days. Don't try it for a week. A week is not enough. Try it for 10 days, then for the next 10 days, and for the next 10 days. And when you're at 30 days, you'll see, no, I'll try it for 60 days now because it's so satisfying. The food you can make with carnivore, with animal products, it's very, sometimes I can't believe that I'm on a diet. I'm not calling it a diet, but this way of eating, you can eat delicious foods and be satisfied.
Yeah, and shock all your friends because you're not having any vegetables with it.
Yeah, and I just wish I can tell you what that doctor is gonna say. She's a very nice person, but I don't know. I'm very nervous to go to her and but I'm gonna be very open because I can just say, take control of your life. It's your life. You see that doctor for 5 minutes at a time, and and because of the doctor also has fears because you are his responsibility. He must make sure that you don't die. Then he reflects all his fears to you as well and tells you how sick you are and what. Don't believe that. It's like a voodoo curse they put on you. Just open your mind because the possibilities are there. People with cancers have been healed, and the possibilities are there. Life is good. You don't have to suffer that way.
Yeah, well said. Gerda, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
It's a big pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity. And I always watch your videos, and it really inspires me. And I hope I'm going to inspire people and give them hope because there is hope, and we must just stick to a better way of living, a better way of eating.